I'm Ryan Milliken from Hardway Performance, and you're listening to the Diesel Podcast.
I'm Dimitri Miller with No Zone Diesel.
This is Anthony Reams from XDP.
This is Jaron Holder from Holderdown Performance.
Corey Willis from PPEI.
I'm Drew with D&J Precision Machine.
I'm Pinky.
And you're listening to the Diesel Podcast.
Diesel Podcast.
You're listening to the Diesel Podcast.
The Diesel Podcast. The one and only Diesel Podcast.
What is going on, Diesel Nation? I want to thank you guys for all the iTunes reviews, comments on social media, a bunch of emails. We love the feedback we're getting from you guys with topics and guests and things you want to know about in the diesel performance industry, in towing, just making your trucks more reliable. Keep blowing us up with all this information. We love hearing from you, love using that to bring you new episodes. We also want to encourage you guys to go over to the dieselpodcast.com. We've got all of our episodes there. We've got a apparel store. It's got the Diesel Podcast logo on it. You guys sold us out last week, but we're stocked up now, ready to go. So can't thank you guys enough for the support, asking us about hats and shirts and tons of different things. On today's episode, we're going to jump into 4748RE stuff, but before we do, we wanted to talk to you about the BD Diesel High 5 torque converter. It fits in line with some episodes we've had recently about these guys at the track just putting a ton of power through a 47 or 48RE and almost eclipsing the platform and what it can hold. This torque converter from BD, you can pull it and take it apart yourself. So if you want to change a stator, you want to refresh it, you don't have to ship it from you or your shop back to the manufacturer and wait for it and pay shipping and all that stuff. You can do it in your garage. You can do it wherever you want. It's a really cool product. You can check it out at dieselperformance.com. And we also want to thank PPEI as well. PPEI has tuning for Cummins Duramax Power Stroke, whether you just want a 30 horsepower tune or you've got a crazy S500 triple setup and you want to harness the most power out of it. Make sure you go to ppei.com and check out all the tuning options they have. Ethan, how's it going, man? I'm really excited to have you on the podcast today.
Good. How are you guys?
Man, we're staying busy and trying to keep up with all the diesel races and product updates and everything going on out there. It's been a pretty crazy year so far.
Yeah, it's getting really, really popular every year. Seems like every class is growing, you know it?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's, it's probably the last 2 or 3 years just jumped leaps and bounds, you know, as far as the power, the things trucks are doing, how fast they're going.
Oh, for sure. For sure.
I wanted to have you introduce yourself and your company to our listeners. So if they haven't heard about you guys and what you're doing, if you could tell us, you know, how you started, where you guys are located, what you guys do there in the shop.
So I'm Ethan with Wilson Patterson Diesel. We're located in Lafayette, Indiana. Most of you would know it as Purdue University. Is about 5 miles from us in West Lafayette. We're just across the river. You know, it seems like a typical story. We all started out with a dream. Took our hobby into a full-time job. I was a full-time farmer, did it for, you know, many years and did kind of the diesel thing on the side. Could never get a transmission to hold, and I didn't have the funds really to pay somebody to do it, so I dug in myself years ago, and, you know, that's kind of got us where we're at now. We specialize in transmissions and, you know, all kinds of stuff in the diesel industry. We have you know, fleet maintenance and general maintenance in the front, 3 bays, 2-post lifts, 6-bay shop. We got a machine shop side that, you know, we machine some of our transmission parts and stuff in-house. And we have what they call a drag racing bay where, you know, it's a big, long project. That bay pretty much stays with some type of race application vehicle in there, whether we're building chassis or, you know, setting some suspension up or, you know, putting a power plant in, wiring, whatever it may be. So, yeah, that's where we all started, you know. Started on the farm and went into something that we all loved and wanted to evolve into something bigger.
Oh, exactly. What's that saying? If you do something you love, it's like you never worked a day the rest of your life.
Yeah. It's just like that, too, you know. We all come in here and enjoy what we do every day. And that's a big, you know, I was the same way on the farm. I really enjoyed farming. It was too much to do both jobs. And so my passion lied in going fast, and watching the diesels grow, which they have, tremendously grown, like we spoke earlier about.
Now, as far as what you guys work on in the shop and see with the transmission program, do you guys specialize in one type of transmission, like say for a Dodge, or do you guys do a little bit of everything, whether it's Ford and GM, or?
We do everything. I guess our big seller is going to be, the 4748. Just the year span there is just huge. Dodge is obviously, a cheaper truck for, per se, the younger kids to buy and turn up. You start getting into, we do the Fords, we do the Allison stuff. We do it all, but our main, customer base is going to be in the 4748. Our runner-up would be a 4R100. So. Gotcha.
Very cool. Very cool. That's, I'm a Cummins guy, and I love the 5.9 platform. And even, which, with 6.7, the 48 swaps are really cool, which I'm sure we'll get to that here in a little bit, but it's, I love that transmission. I love that 48. I've been seeing your truck. You guys have a really cool truck. I've been seeing it everywhere. Events, online, tons of different things. Tell us about the kind of truck that you got, what's done to it, kind of power it's making, those kind of things.
Okay. So we built a 799 spec Pro Street, four-wheel drive. It is a 2006, originally was a dually with 78,000 miles on it. It was fully loaded leather interior. Really beautiful truck. No rust, no nothing. We set out with a goal of going fast. So me and Jay Lou went in on this truck. Jay Lou is out of Massachusetts, and we started into it with a plasma cutter and cut as much weight as we possibly could and back half the whole setup. We did it all here in-house. It's got a Freedom's racing engine. It has been on the engine dyno at 2013 horsepower on a single GT55 102.
Wow. That
is fuel only. So we went with a single platform, single charger platform. We have a set of twin 12 mil S&S pumps on it, some DDP injectors. Obviously, we put it in there with one of our 48RE transmissions with Suncoast parts. It does have the standalone E618 valve body, which we set up for all of our racing customers. It's just a lot easier for somebody that's going fast not to take their hand off the wheel. I try to make it as simple, easy, and non-complex as possible, but yet have the data and the capability to be able to fine-tune something as well as, you can fine-tune the transmission as well as the engine. And that's just the way technology is kind of going, and that's what we seeked out to do. So it's got Ford 9-inch front and rear axles. It's just it's one heck of a build. We entered it in the UCC qualifier for the 2018 season. We were literally working on it as we were unloading it from the trailer. A lot of people watched us on social media and Snapchat and whatnot, and didn't think it was going to make it. We did not sleep for 4 days straight to get this thing done, and we busted butts. And, it was a really big stretch. Had no test time. We didn't even know if the charger was going to spool. We unloaded it from the trailer, went to the dyno, had an electrical gremlin, and it shut down the whole dash about halfway through the run, and put down 1,400 horse to the wheel, which it was kind of it was a win for us. We spent so much time and no sleep. If that thing just made it and shifted through the gears and put down any type of number, we were all happy. So even though it wasn't a big impressive number, we took it back to the pits, went back through it, found our electrical gremlins, and, got ready for the next day to make a quarter-mile hit on it. That was another accomplishment. We worked all night getting that thing ready to launch. We didn't know what it was going to do, if it was going to go straight, it was going to, go into the other lane. We're kind of shooting from the hip. And we ended up cutting a 1/4 60-foot. Some of the software that we're using in the transmission side hasn't been used yet in the racing application. So we had a little bit of a gear hang, but we since we have data logs on it, we could find out exactly what happened and went back through it and got it all figured out. It'll be running the ODSS Pro Street circuit. This year, I think what we're going to try to do is hit some, we're not going for points this year. We're going to get the chassis set, make sure, we get it dialed in, find out what power the chassis likes, and if we need to add, how much nitrous, being that it's a single charger and not triple turbos like most of the fleet is out there. So we got a little playing around to do with the chassis and whatnot, but I really think it's going to be one of the top contenders. I mean, we got a really good base to work off of, and definitely be a pretty good competition in that class.
Now, when you guys were planning out the Air, was there a particular reason you wanted to go with a single charger versus, say, like some of the triple setups that are out there?
Initially, like even up to about a couple months before the competition, we had all intentions of doing triples. Just because that was like the class, that was what the people were doing in the class, and it was working, and it was great. But as we started getting closer and closer and running out of time, we're like, man, this thing as a single would make plenty of power. We obviously know that from the engine dyno. So we decided that we were going to be kind of a one-off deal. There's a couple people running some big singles, but the whole key purpose behind it, I guess, would be as you run a triple turbo, it also adds low-end power. So we're looking at a torque factor off the line, which if you watch four-wheel drive diesel trucks, I mean, it's kind of hard to get a chassis to stick, off the line. There's so much torque, it just wants to chatter the tires and blow through them. Right. Well, if we take it to an RPM base where we have to have the RPMs way up and build a bunch of horsepower up high, it's going to be less of a challenge for us to get the low-end torque out, because there just isn't going to be as much. So I guess that's the theory behind it. It seems to work. It's been proven a couple times, So we'd rather have a high RPM, low torque, racing setup rather than the grunt power, I guess, as you would say, from a triple or a twin turbo. I mean, just be like putting twins on your tow pig, You do it because you gain so much low-end power. You can grunt through the hills, and it lowers EGTs, and that's all great. But in drag racing, we see an advantage, I guess, of going with higher RPM and higher horsepower than torque. So I guess that's the reasoning we stuck with what we did.
Do you think with that, say, running the RPM and changing where that torque comes on, that it's almost easier on some parts, or you can extend the longevity of it with different components?
Oh, for sure. Put it in perspective of, let's say a Turbo 400 behind an LS, fully blown, turbocharged, and then you put a Turbo 400 behind a triple turbo Cummins. There's a lot of difference in there. I mean, when you're building RPM and using RPM and horsepower as your friend, you can get by with a lot of like stock shafts in builds like that because it just doesn't have the torque load on it. You put a Turbo 400 behind a Dodge or something in that nature with a diesel, and all of a sudden, the stuff that you didn't break in the gas world becomes a whole different factor in the diesel world, because we have that low-end grunt, and it will straight shear, snap off clean shafts, and, you scratch your head for a long time. So longevity of parts is definitely a big thing with that single charger deal.
And almost it leads into a series of questions that we've gotten on social media for a little while, and I've been keeping track of them about a 47, whether it's an RH, RE, 48 RE, and shafts. So I wanted to ask a transmission guy, Somebody walks into your shop, they've got, say, an '06 common rail, and it's got just a programmer on it, and it's something maybe 430, 450 horsepower. They'll ask, when do I need to do a billet input shaft? What are the guidelines that you tell customers and advise them as to whether they can get away with stock shafts and when they need to go to billet shafts?
There's obviously a lot of different factors that come to key on input shafts. And I tell my customers this. I say, we can all put stock input shafts in, and yes, we can make them live. You're going to have a cheaper grid torque converter that doesn't have such a harsh, aggressive lockup. You don't want a jar shaft when you got a stock shaft in there. A lot has to do with valve body modification. You don't really go into a big, high-pressure valve body build when you are trying to utilize a stock shaft. Any type of a jolt in the system, whether it be billet or factory, because I've snapped both personally. If you're under load and you hit a bump as it's shifting a gear, hitting lockup, it's going to snap any shaft you got in there. There's some shafts out there that might not break, but depending on the power level you're at and you actually unload and load the chassis, it would definitely probably break the shaft in there, and it's usually the input. So I guess on our builds, if they're sometimes you got to see what kind of driving habits they have, and if the truck pulls in here and it's got forces on it, and you got a little rubber right there on the back of the bedside, you don't really offer them a stock input. You kind of know that this kid's probably going to be doing burnouts, and you just don't really want your name on something that might or might not work.
Right.
So, some of the older fellas that come in here that are just going to be towing, we do get away with a stock input shaft. We do a nice billet front cover single disc torque converter. They're good for 400 and 500 horse builds. These guys are mostly, in the 350, 400 range. When somebody gets up there around the 450, 500 range, it's just time. It's if not, you're going to be doing everything twice. And, I've had a customer come in here and say he's selling the truck. He just wants to get it going. Give me that story. And I explained to him that if this does break, it's going to cost more than what we are doing now. So, it was a dually, and he was late for work, and he was at a stop sign and just gassed it. And unfortunately, the converter didn't slip, or nothing slipped in the trans, and it put all the power to the ground, and it snapped his stock input. Well, when you do that, you had just taken out your torque converter, your front pump assembly, your input shaft, and sometimes it takes out, the forward drum. So you're looking at pretty much the whole front half of your transmission being replaced, and he literally had double the money in it as he would have just to buy a good converter and a good input and run it, and I try to explain that to people a lot. And I know it seems like a lot of money up front, but if you get in the bad situation and then you look back, you're like, man, I wish I should have listened. I wish I should have done that. And that's what we try to get across to our customers, that a lot of us shops aren't out there just to, make a bunch of money, because we all know that, there's not big profit margins, and we're out here to help. We've been in the shoes before, and we're out here to help. We're not trying to just sell something. So we really try to push a good converter and a good input. Yes, you can get by, like I said. It really depends on the valve body setup, how hard you want that thing to engage, how much pressure you got, what kind of converter's in there. You want a little less grade converter in there, unfortunately, to keep the stock input shaft alive. You don't want jolts. You don't want harsh lockups. Like I said, you keep things kind of closer to the stock side if you are going towards keeping that stock input.
Now, at the point, say, a guy comes in and he's sold, he knows he wants a billet input. When do you go to a billet flex plate and, say, an output shaft? What kind of power level or use do we start to go to that, those upgrades?
The flex plate is really hit and miss. I've had stock trucks come in here with busted flex plates. Don't know how they do it. They rip the center right out of it, stock power. Then you got guys out there with 550, 600 horse on stock flex plate and doing, they don't ever fail. I guess what we call our street flight version, which is like a billet input shaft, triple disc converter, double deep pan, R valve body, comes with a billet flex plate. That's rated for 650 horsepower. Our limiting factor, as everybody's, is the output shaft. Around 650 horsepower, depending on what you're doing with the truck and your age. If it hops off the ground and you're full drive boost launching it, yes, you're going to break a stock output shaft. I've personally had trucks, it's 750 horse, and the stock output shaft lives. But my chassis never hopped off the ground, and I've never full drive boost launched it. So the output shaft answer would be, if you are going for a billet output shaft, I would say you want to be around the area of, 650, 600, 650 horsepower is right there pushing it. If you're going to be doing a four-wheel drive boosted launch. If you're not, you can get by with the stock output shaft at the 650, 700 horse range. But most people at that kind of horsepower aren't going to, not full drive boost launch.
Yeah.
At that point, it's pretty much a given. I always tell my customers, look, if you don't have the funds for a billet output shaft, do not cheap out on the input. Do not cheap out on the converter or flex plate. If you want to cheap out, do an output shaft. Because if you break an output shaft, we don't have to drop the trans normally. We pull the transfer case, we extract the broken off piece out of the transfer case input, and we drop the overdrive housing off the back of the transmission. Then we upgrade the output shaft. So it doesn't, like an intermediate shaft will take out the center of the transmission, and, it will, it's about as bad, or if not worse. I've had an intermediate shaft personally take out, the input all the way to the overdrive housing. I'm sure a lot of you guys have seen Montana Cherry on the video online of him splitting the intermediate shaft, and it busted his whole case. The intermediate shaft is no joke. It definitely is 100%. If you're close to breaking, power level of breaking that intermediate shaft should be priority over the output, in my opinion. Because if we break an output shaft, you're wasting maybe $300 to $600 of labor, but it does not tear anything else up. So, as of the flex plates, what we see in the flex plate world is, if you have a really thick, stiff flex plate, your converter bolts normally do not back out. You still get people every once in a while that have converter bolts loosen up, and you can Loctite them as tight as you want. And there's just some trucks that just vibrate them out. When you have that happen, and you catch it, because whether you hear a noise or you're just under there, it will actually egg shape the hole, and you might not notice it. But if you go to use that flex plate again and you tighten it down, everything will be all fine, happy, hunky-dory until you go to put power to it under lockup. That will sit there and vibrate and egg shape that hole even more, and it will shoot every single flex plate bolt off in the converter. So the flex plate being extra thick on top of the SFI rating, so any flex plate you pretty much get aftermarket is going to have that SFI tag, which is pretty much mandatory on a track, whether you be sled pulling or whether you be drag racing. They want to know that that thing is, not factory, and it's not going to come through your bell housing and kill somebody or hurt yourself or, send you into the wall or whatever it may be. But the flex plate is, I wouldn't say has a technically a horsepower level, as well as longevity and safety. You know, a lot of our 500 horsepower builds, like I said, always get a billet flex plate, and we don't really bend on that. We just don't want a converter in there that could be, you know, that flex plate moving around and walk out a pump bushing or something in that nature.
Well, and also, too, it saves money versus a tow bill. It's a lot cheaper to do that flex plate while it's in your bay, you know?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. It is. It is for sure.
Now, the intermediate that you talked about, when is that, say, you know, there's a lot of different kind of information out there as far as, I think everyone's real consistent with the billet input, the flex plate, the outputs, but there can be a little confusion out there for a truck owner. When do I need to do the intermediate? You know, is it 800 horse? Is it 850? You know, what point do you do that one?
Like I mentioned before, the intermediate shaft is a very important shaft. It keeps everything in line. It keeps everything on shaft end plate. If that thing breaks, it is pretty much total failure. At that power level, I would say anything over 800 to 850 horse, like you mentioned, would definitely be a good time to put the 300M intermediate shaft in it. Now, there's two different types of intermediate shafts that they have one, and we use a place out of Canada that's called TCS Products. There's also a place in Arizona called TCS Performance, I believe. Both very good companies. We've used both, and those are the two big shaft suppliers in the industry. So the main people that are going to be selling these transmissions get those shafts from either one. TCS Products in Canada has two different grades of intermediate shafts. The 300M will go from 850 to about 1,000 horsepower. Anything over 1,000 horsepower, depending on weight of the vehicle and what they're doing with, then we would, and you'll see a double in price tag because the material of this other 300 Miraging intermediate is a lot more expensive, but it holds a lot more power. So we personally have tested the Miraging intermediate up to, at the wheels, it was 2,368 horsepower on the stainless diesel drive truck. And we have never, ever to this day had an intermediate shaft failure, and it's been in there for 5 seasons now. We've never swapped it out. We've never changed it. That 300 Miraging shaft is a lifesaver. If you do happen to break one, like I said, it is typically case, rear drum, the direct drum, forward drum, depending on, sometimes you can save the overdrive housing, but, you know, the pump all the way back to the center support is just trash, and sometimes the case. So it's not really something to mess around with. So I would say 100%, if you got, like I said earlier in this, if you got 800, 850 horse, you plan to have fun. You're not going out there to, you know, see if you can tow a trailer up a mountain. You're planning on going and doing burnouts and four-wheel drive boost launches and racing Corvettes and, you know, whatever it may be. The 800 horsepower, you better just plan on spending, you know, the $650, $680, whatever that 300M shaft is, and putting it in there. It's, you know, at least in our shop, it's no different money whether we put a stock one or an aftermarket one in labor-wise. It doesn't matter to us. The only other cost you got is the shaft. So, you know, at that point, a lot of our customers say, you know, at this point, I really want, you know, that billet intermediate shaft, because I explain it to them just like I'm explaining to you guys. You're playing fine. Yeah. I know I read things online and have, you know, before I even started in transmissions, and people are saying, you know, these stock intermediate shafts are just as strong as the 300Ms, and I would really like to see that. I really would, because I've been through both of them, and I know what the material of both of them is, and there's absolutely no way. A 300M intermediate shaft, at the least, is what I would do at the 800 to 850 horse range. especially if you plan on to go have fun, which you're going to at that kind of power level.
Definitely, that leads into actually the other question we got from a guy, and this has become a really popular swap. Is you get these 6.7s, they probably have a built motor, 6.7 Cummins, and the trucks are going to be 1,000 horse, 1,200, 1,300, 1,400 horse, and the 68 RFE just is not going to hold that. And swapping the 48 REs in, well, the guy who messaged us has a 2015. And I know you guys got some things for this. I'm really excited to talk about it. Yeah, you can put the 48RE behind it, but does the push button start work? Does the reverse camera work? Do all these creature comforts work? And you guys got something for that, or been working on something for that. And I wanted to learn more about that.
Okay. So what we work with here is all of our swaps get the E618 from Suncoast Performance valve body, which is converted basically, it's a non-governor style valve body. It's all switched, every gear selection is switched to an on-off solenoid. You could tap it with a button and shift it, or you can put it in gear and program it to go with mile per hour versus TPS or boost or RPM or whatever you may want to set it up to. That valve body takes what they call Powertrain Control Solutions, or PCS 2800 TCM. Transmission control module. It's a universal control module designed for all kinds of, anywhere from 4 to 6 speed transmissions. That module has allowed us and has the ability to make what we have worked on for the last 8 months, an all-in-one transmission controller, and it also controls the ECM side. So we have a harness and module revision that we are able to plug in the factory 68 RFE connector to our harness and into the valve body and make the dash work, the push button start work, the remote start work, the backup camera. All of your bells and whistles will work as if it was factory. And that's what we've been working at for a long time. There's also another module that will do the same. It's kind of an add-on module, which is what we have done in the past before we was able to release ours, was the Porcupine from Firepunk. It works excellent too. Great guys, great product, flawless operation. It does the same exact thing. It will allow you to, have push button start. It'll allow you to have cruise control. The remote start feature works, 4-low, all kinds of, all of your bells and whistles basically. No check engine lights, no ABS, StabiliTrak stuff will be on. It's as close as factory as we are going to be able to get right now. Not to say that either the 68 might evolve more. I know there's been a lot of research going on. We are actually doing some more research ourselves on the 68 and going to be digging in. But until that, this 48 is definitely going to have to fill the gap. There's not many other transmissions out there that we can make swap in there that's this easy and be able to cross-communicate between the modules and everything. So that's kind of where we're at on there.
That is so cool, because for years it was always a trade-off of, it's pretty easy to fit one behind a 6.7, compared to other swaps. And they've been built. Guys like yourself know how to build a 47, 48, know when to go to these different shafts, know where to stall the converter. It's proven. But you put it behind your 6.7 and now certain features on the truck don't work. And it's really hard, to make that jump, swap a 48 in it, and you got your $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 truck that now lost these features. So the fact that that can be incorporated in those day-to-day kind of creature comforts it's really cool. I wish it had been out for a while when I did mine, because mine was, I had to make trade-offs and it wasn't fun, but guys don't have to do that anymore. Yep.
We've definitely, it took a lot of time, trying to run a business and do R&D is definitely hard for us. We have a lot more things that we're wanting to incorporate per se that will be coming out, but this is as close as we get right now, and it's working awesome. Like you said, a lot of these guys were really iffy about doing the swap. As we know it, the Allison swap's getting kind of up there and getting everybody's attention. I think that'll be a big hitter here for a while, which I would recommend if you're going to have a 6.7 that's going to do nothing but tow through the mountains and stuff like that. Our 6.7 guys, like you said before, these guys, that are doing the 48 swaps, they're wanting to go out, play around, do full drive boost launches, put 1,000 horse down to the ground, whatever it may be, and they know that when they hit the gas, it's not going to try to relearn. It's gonna go. It's going to hold the power. It's going to put it to the ground, and it's going to launch, and you're going to beat the guy beside you, hopefully.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's the big 48 thing, man. It's definitely an awesome swap. It beats refreshing a 68 or going through a 68, 2 or 3 times before you decide to do it. So if you have plans to go, the 1,000 horsepower, and you want it reliable and you don't want to mess with the trans, I would very highly recommend doing some sort of 48 swap, for sure.
The part that also ties it all together that you mentioned earlier is the PCS and the data logging and what you can do with that truck to get it to go quicker just by customizing the shifts, the lockup, and then also, the other part of it is making it drivable. I mean, you probably do pretty much anything with that controller to give the customer what they want. Yes,
we can. I run it in I have a 99 Dodge Dually. Owned it since, I took my wife to prom in it. So it's kind of sentimental. But I do run a 2800. It was a manual truck, and I got a Frankenstein, 4748 Frankenstein transmission, I call it. With the E618 with the 2800. I pretty much make base files off of that truck. Somebody, calls in and says, hey man, I just really can't get this thing to shift right. I want to do this, or, I'll either go out there, load their file in my truck, make sure, our base file is 100% working like it should be, or I will have them download TeamViewer, and I will sit there and personally spend time watching them drive it through their computer and, tune it as they're driving. Everybody drives different. Everybody wants their shift points different. One thing I did do for my customers is get the calibration B. So there's able to be 2 tune files. Pretty much my calibration A in all my setups is going to be your daily driver going through town. Lockup's going to be a little less harsh. It's going to come in later. Just a more of a daily driver tune. And then my calibration B is going to be some higher line pressure. It's going to shift a little harder into gear. Your lockup's going to be down low. So when you do get into it, it'll take it. But everybody seems to have a little bit different, turbo setup or what you may have under the hood. And so everybody's, tune file is a little different. So it does take a little bit of knowledge and knowing your way around. But having that, like you said, that information there, you hook a laptop up, you can see everything that transmission's doing, why it shifts, where it's shifting, what your throttle angle is, so your TPS. It has voltage display. It tells us what solenoid's engaged, when lockup came in. I mean, the sky's the limit. It's really cool. So yeah, the 2800 it's more expensive than what I guess the competitors have, but there's a lot more adjustability, and it seems to me like it drives a little better on the street for your daily driver stuff, just because of the tunability of them,
and that's really the thing, like, that these listeners we have that messaged us, or just what's come up over time with episodes is, going full throttle at the track, it is what it is. You know where to shift it, what the line pressure needs to be, where the lockup needs to happen based on the setup. but the truck owner is going to spend way more time driving this truck to work, taking it on a trip, going to the store, whatever it might be. And with all the different driving styles out there, you're not just stuck with what, say an engineer at Ram decided a 68 RFE should do. You can change that whole setup and make them happy. And that's really awesome too, that you'll do it on TeamViewer. You'll make those adjustments for them so they don't have to learn this whole entire new software, maybe not know what they're doing, smoke the tranny because something was moved that shouldn't,
Yeah. Yeah. It's very easy to do on that end. But yeah. Yep. I mean, there's been countless times where people, have messaged me on Facebook per se, on our Wilson Patterson Diesel Facebook or, something in that nature and says, hey, man, I really just can't get this thing to shift right, or, it's not doing what I want it to do. And, I'll just have them, email me a tune file and I'll look through it and I'll fix it. Or, if I can't see anything wrong, I say, hey, either send me a data log or let's get on some TeamViewer real quick. And, within 5 or 10 minutes, we got an answer and we can get it figured out and, get them back on the road, to where it works and they're happy and everything's happy hunky-dory, So, yeah.
I really appreciate your time today. You got me pumped up about 48 RE swaps and stuff.
Yep. They're fun, man. We do a lot of them.
Sweet. Yeah, well, I want to keep following you guys. We follow you on Instagram, Facebook, and everything, and I want to see what the truck does this year, and we'll have to chat later in the year as well. I'm sure that everything's going to change in the diesel performance market here in 3 to 6 months anyway. Seems like that's what it's been doing for the last couple of years.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, we're technically a small industry, but we're evolving it really fast and we're stepping up to the plate. So I'm sure 3 to 6 months we'll probably have something totally different and awesome coming out. And we'll all have to change what we know. So appreciate it, and we'll talk at you guys later.
Don't forget, diesel fans, make sure and check out the High 5 torque converter from BD Diesel at dieselperformance.com and tuning for your Cummins Duramax or Power Stroke at PPEI.com. Until next time, keep the shiny side up.